Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about the second game of the Lanke Cup final between Shin Jinseo 9p and Dang Yifei 9p. So Shin Jinseo is playing as black and Dang Yifei is playing as white in this game. We have a very normal Joseki happening on the bottom left, and the white now approaches top right. Black Tanuki, which is a little surprising, right? To take a very big enclosure over here. White also Tanuki instead of pressing here. I remember that the theory that AI has is that pressing here would be very nice. But of course, I mean, any move these days is a move, and you won't be losing much. Next up, we have Shin Jinseo's favorite two-space low pincer. I think everybody now knows Shin Jinseo is good at it, and they're scared, and no one plays the Keima at this point as white. And therefore, white chooses a more niche variation. Black hops, and white now plays the counterattack. And black has to play the two-space extension. This is a must-play move, by the way. If you just play loose like this, then white is going to get the two-space extension. And white is just way too comfortable here. It's a nice space, and it pressures black's corner, right? So, and this attack, I'm not sure how much profits that black can get out. So, it's very important when we are in a fighting situation to be very keen on points. And at this point, white plays the kick, black connects, and white plays the keima to cap the stone inside. This stone looks like it's in trouble. Now, the reason white need to exchange that is because if you just cap like this, then black can have this very vulgar style counterattack. And it is vulgar, but it's very effective. Like, white is having trouble dealing with this, right? Likely the stone in the corner is going to die. So this is not good for white. And that's why white is worried about this, and white exchanges one move. And the cost of exchanging this move is that this attach doesn't exist anymore. So it comes with a cost, but at least when we play the keima, it's very strong against black stone. Black now plays the keima to get out as a very light, very nice shape move. White now blocks back. I really like this move. I would have played something like just jump out, but then when black crawls, all of a sudden I have some shape problem, and black gained a slightly more ice space. So I really like what white played. It was very solid. Black now pushes up, and white simply extends out. So if you were watching this game live, you might be wondering how come, especially if you're like mid-dan to high-dan level player, I don't know about you, but like my first intuition is to obviously jump here, right? And this is just more efficient because we can see this is like a stick with a one space extension. Looks like a bit of over concentration. So how come Dang Yifei didn't play the jump here, right? And then turns out if you check with AI, that jump is actually slightly better. So the reason is not because Dang Yifei doesn't understand that this is more efficient. And this is the fun part. Like, depending on who's commentating on the game, I like to dive a little bit into what the players are thinking, right? For top professionals, they're really the best players in the world. There's no way that they're just playing this move for no reason, right? It's just like worse. We can see that. Now, the reason why I play this is because why I didn't play this is because Dang Yifei is worried about black playing the kick. When white extends out, which white must do to survive, then black has a tiger's mouth to squeeze. White has to pull the stone back. Black now cuts. White harness in the corner, black harness, and white double harness. And here we can see all of a sudden there's a ko, right? So when black takes, white can use a local ko threat. Black has to respond to that. But when white takes back, we can see the difference between you jumping here and extending out is because black has an extra ko threat. Right? This is what Dang Yifei was reading, right? It's not just like he doesn't understand shape, he doesn't understand to not over concentrate. Rather, he reads like ocean deep in these type of tournaments. Like, these tournaments are so serious. There's no way that these players would just play like weird looking move for no reasons, right? So after this, what's gonna happen is white likely has to connect here, but then when black takes, where's white's ko threat, right? This corner is probably not even a ko threat. If you do this, black connects, we can see black claim so much territory, And the fact you block here, yeah, it's very nice, but later on, black still has some sort of ways to make use of the dead corner, right? So this is not going to work for white. Or at least white doesn't like this position. And I don't like this position either as white. So this is what Dang Yifei is actually reading in the game. All right, so, and that explains you why he picked a slightly worse looking variation. Black now hops out and white hops out. Both look very natural. We have to get out when we have groups that are not alive. And now black plays a beautiful move in the center. So this is more like for single digit Q and low down level player. This is the wrong shape to play because it leaves a peep that peeps at both your weakness. But when you play the Keima, which is the shape move, when you have a jump, when you have a jump and you want to make a win like this, it's usually jump jump Keima, right? Very beautiful shape. Now if white wants to attack it, then at least we only have one cutting point, right? We can't avoid this cutting point, but then we can see that because of white's weaknesses, this cutting point is not going to work. I'm trying to push out, I'm trying to cut through. So this does not work for white. So this is the shape move. And then at this point, white decides to peep into the corner. Also a very brilliant idea. So usually the idea for white to deal with this group is to attach onto black. But white doesn't want to do it right away because after this exchange, now when white goes into black's corner, black will definitely not block on top. Black will jump down and kill the corner. So before that happens, white exchanges the move first and then attach on top, right? So later on that white has the opportunity to play the Kosumi, and there's a lot of Aji in the corner. Likely white's going to live the corner. So that's the beauty of playing things in a smart order, is that you can get both, you can get profits on both sides instead of just one slice of profits. All right. So next up, we have white not dragging that out. White has to play on the outside. This is a very important move. Once again, we see the shape, right? Not jumping down, the Keima. Jump, jump, Keima. Something that we can definitely learn from these professionals. Now, black plays a very nice shape move. This is a very beautiful shape move. I love this. I could not have seen this move in my game, but this strengthens black, right? So the cutting point is gone, right? We used to have a cutting point, but now it's completely gone. But it's also looking at the shape problem that white has. This forces white to play the triangle in order to connect. And now black goes into the corner to protect the territory and also the safety of the three stones. White push and block on top. And here Shin Jinseo plays a beautiful Keima, pressuring white, suppressing white's Moyo, and also strengthening the group even further. Now imagine if you play something else and white gets this move, that will be very annoying because now there's a cutting point which black has to defend, but also there's a giant Moyo forming. So there are two problems at the same time. But when black gets here, we can see now black is pressuring white and also reducing the Moyo. So it's a must-play move. White now follow up with the idea I talked about, attach and extend, making sure the group is stronger now. And here Shin Jinseo plays another beautiful Keima. It's the same idea as the previous one. This one is really breaking into the Moyo and threatening the life and death of the dragon. Next move, Dang Yifei plays a a move that connects to the Moyo. But actually, this turns out to be a mistake by white. The reason it's a mistake is not because it's a small move. In fact, this is an absolute giant move. But what's more important is the safety of your group. Right? If this group is enclosed in some sort of way, then you have to struggle to survive. So very important for white to now jump here to make sure that his dragon is okay and won't be attacked. When white plays here, this also serves as protecting the territory on the third line. So this is a very important move to not to miss. But in the actual game, Dang Yifei got greedy and he wants this very big move on the outside, but he has to pay a very heavy price. And I don't think it's going to be worth it. So when Shin Jinseo jumps down, we can see there's no more chances for white to get territory here, and white has to worry about the life and death. White goes into the corner, and then after the exchange, black extends, making sure white only has one eye. And here white plays the bamboo, making sure there's no shape problems because this type of shape always have this fatal problem over here. Now, if white wants to make an eye, it's very hard because when you play the hane, black can hane, and this is just a tough shape for white because when you play the tiger's mouth, black can atari and pull the stone back, and we can see that white is just losing the game. And of course, white cannot really fight the code. This is just too heavy because when black takes, it's about the life and death of your whole dragon. So it's a flower code for black. So it's not acceptable. So when black plays a hane, if white can only connect like this, that'd be quite miserable, right? So basically, black can push over here, and then it's just a miserable. It's just a very miserable way for white to live in here, right? You have to play another move to make this eye, and then later on you probably have to block here and make the tiger's mouth to make the second eye, and black's gonna gain a lot of profits on the outside. So this is not the shape for white to play. So white has to play, in the actual game, white played a bamboo, which is not nice either because that will be countered by black's extension. The extension move actually gains some extra points for black, but white doesn't have any points. So at this point, Dang Yifei realizes that his mistake over here is costing him a lot at this point. Therefore, he decided to basically stop the bleeding by simply living the dragon. Because with this, black cannot bully white anymore. So these two moves are quite tough for white to play. Because especially jumping here, letting black cutting through means that there's not a lot of eye space that white has over here. Means that this group is affected. So living like this has a lot of cost. And this puts white quite behind in this game at this point. So at this point, Shin Jinseo decides to play an exchange, forcing white to connect. And the next move, Shin Jinseo played a big keima in the center. So this is also a very big mistake from Shin Jinseo, in my opinion, for his level, right? For amateur level players, when you play here, I'm like, okay, fine. But for Shin Jinseo, playing a move like this is quite a serious, I wouldn't say blunder, but this is a very obvious mistake to a top professional level player like him. The reason this is a mistake is because this is too loose, right? When you're playing against one of the top professionals like Dang Yifei, you have to play very tight. You have to be very efficient, not a move like this. The reason black plays a move like this is probably trying to build a little bit of territory and strengthen the connection here. Because when we have a keima, a lot of times what happens is white can go for this attack and all of a sudden you're cut off. And of course this is a problem, but the way to fix it is not to play such a passive move. Here black has two ways to deal with this potential problem. The first way is for black to counterattack. Or I wouldn't say counterattack, but to attack white first, taking the initiative, not giving white the time to think about this attach. Right? This move also strengthens dragon here, mitigating white's attack over here. Right? So this is a very efficient way. Not only we're attacking white, we're strengthening our dragon, which mitigates our cutting point. And that's how you play Go. Right? This is not really Go. This is not following any of the Go principles. But this is, right? This is a very efficient move. Now, another way you can directly fix the cutting point is to play more efficient. Instead of playing the keima in the center, which is just dancing by yourself, we can play the shoulder hit to put maximum pressure against white's moyo while we fix the cutting point. If white plays the crawl, then we can jump. And here white probably has to play the kosumi to defend the territory. We can see with these two exchanges, this drastically mitigates the cutting point, and now black can go for his idea of attacking white because he got the second line stone over here. This is actually quite dangerous for white at this point. So these are the two ways that Shin Jinseo could have played to maintain a very big lead. Unfortunately, Shin Jinseo played really loose, and that's not a great idea when you're playing against one of, not one of, I would say the best endgame player in the world right now. All right, so at this point, Dang Yifei catches that opportunity and attaches into black. A very brilliant move. The idea of this move is for black to play even more moves here, right? You want to concentrate, I'm going to make you over concentrate. That's the idea of white playing here. For illustration purposes, if black decides to just exchange for no reasons, all of a sudden we can see white encloses a lot of territory, but black is over concentrating. So Shin Jinseo cannot play like that, obviously, and therefore he decides to go for an attack. White honeys, black double honeys, white connects, and black pierce through into white's territory, a must-play move. White honeys on top, black connects, and white now plays rock solid by playing the Keima. It's a must-play move, or else black blocks here, and your territory will vanish. So that's a very solid and must-play move. And at this point, Shin Jinseo comes right into the moyo. Instead of playing the honey, which is a bad idea, because you over-concentrate and white is building giant territory. So you have to come in right away. White honeys, white double honeys, and black now connects. White now plays the Kosumi, a very beautiful Tsuji. A lot of times we would be thinking about, well, okay, maybe play a double tiger's mouth, but first of all, they're two honeys, very uncomfortable. But also black has the chance to hop back like this. So the shape move right now is for white to play the Kosumi. And then here, nothing disastrous is going to happen for white. In the actual game, Shin Jinseo decides to not Atari. For example, if Shin Jinseo gets really greedy, then if he honeys, white connects, black connects. Yes, black broke a lot of territory, but then maybe you didn't really break anything because the whole thing is dead, right? So black cannot play like that. In the actual game, Shin Jinseo plays the clamp, happens to be AI's recommendation, which is very impressive in this type of middle game that you're able to play something like this. Now, the reason this is such a good move is that if white counterattacks, black's in a cut, white Atari, black extends, white Atari, black connects, and white extends. Looks like it's very dangerous for black, but black can make use of white's liberty problems and turn in onto the third line. White connects, black will squeeze on the third line, which is an absolute sente, and then go for a fight in the center. So we can see at this point, white cannot really cut anymore. So this is going to be a problem for white. White is probably collapsing over here. All right, so tactically, the counterattack doesn't work for white. But of course, if white just plays the Hane, then gets this Atari that's way too passive. So white cannot accept that either. And Dang Yifei made a very smart choice. That is to Tenuki, right? When you don't know how to deal with something locally, you don't have to deal with it at all. You can just play somewhere else. Black extends, white Hanes, black blocks, and white connects. This is an absolute sente. Black has to squeeze here, and then white now connects and protect all the territory over here. Very solid. Shin Jinseo adds another move in the center, making sure his center is just fine. And now the game is a lot closer than before. Shin Jinseo could have maintained a big lead, but because of the big Keima, and after this whole sequence, the game is quite close, where black is slightly ahead. White now Hanes on top, black plays the tiger's mouth, killing the corner, and white now plays the Keima, making sure that black can't get this Keima and expand on the left side. And here Shin Jinseo plays the Natash on the second line. This is a very questionable move because tactically this doesn't work. White obviously cannot play something like this. This would already be a good exchange for black, and black is just increasing the lead. So white has to counterattack. Now the reason this is very questionable is because the corner life and death is going to be a ko, right? So Shin Jinseo knows that this is a ko, but did it anyway. But when he does the ko, he also said to himself that he doesn't want to use any point losing threat. For example, this would be a ko threat that is point losing because it allows white to capture it, and white gain more points. So Shin Jinseo didn't want to use any of the point losing ko threats, but he also didn't have a good ko threat, which means that his second line attach is quite questionable, right? Because you don't have good ko threats, why go into a ko fight? In the actual game, he chose a ko threat like this, which is not big enough. Therefore, white captures the corner. We can see white gained a very solid corner with a lot more points. And what black got was just controlling the stone temporarily. which doesn't really make your area over here solid territory. White now plays the Atari, black flip Atari, and white now jumps towards the center, getting his group out while suppressing the Moyo on the left. Black challenges that, white extends, black pushes, white honeys, black extends back, and white now connects in the center, making sure his group in the center is just fine. Black plays another move, enclosing all the territory on the left side. But obviously, white will not allow the whole thing to become territory. That would be too big. Therefore, some tactics are required. Now, the AI recommendation is kind of crazy here, but I find it to be really interesting, so I'm going to present that to you. It's for white to capture the stone first. That's easy to understand. After the exchange, white is going to push and peep. After black connects, white will crawl into the corner. So white is basically doing a lot of maneuver with, of course, this has to come with a lot of reading. But at this point, what's really interesting is that white can make use of the you can say two-space jump, making use of Aji in the corner and try to break through here because black has some Aji with this line of defense. So white can make use of this move, try to connect with the corner. If black blocks that connection, then white can make use some of the Aji to get out through here. That's a very complex idea that requires a lot of reading, and therefore Dang Yifei did not think about it. In the actual game, he played a kick over here. Black honeys, white cuts as a very nice tactic. Now black plays the Atari. Looks like white has to connect, but no, he doesn't. He can flip Atari. Black takes, white now Atari on top. And we can see that it looks like a very big success for white actually, right? After white was able to capture the stone, break into black's territory. But apparently this is still fine for black because black is a lot thicker. Black can come back and revenge on the center group by attacking it very fiercely. Black now plays the Keima, getting rid of white's ice space. White has to kick. Black now plays the triangle to get rid of the ice space. And here white plays the block. This is a mistake from Dang Yifei. And by the way, when I say mistake, obviously I mean for them, right? For us, it's like, it's a good move probably for us. But for their level, playing the block here would be considered a mistake. And the reason it is a mistake is because white could have done better by playing the tiger's mouth first. Now, after black plays a few changes, then we block. This will make our ice space a little bit better, especially with a tiger's mouth over here, right? We can see that this is just slightly better ice space and easier to maneuver. In the actual game, white just blocks directly, allowing Shin Jinseo to extend, and we can see all of a sudden there's no possibility for ice space over here, and that is the difference. Now white tries to live, and now black plays a Tsuji. The reason this is great is because when white captures, black can get this Insente. If black gets this Insente, means that the ice space is very limited for white. So white does not have the courage to do that. Therefore, white has to use a sequence to kind of connect back. Black cuts, white connects, and now black Atari. After the exchange, white now tries to live the dragon. Fortunately for white, there's another eye over here. Black now plays the squeeze here, looking at the cut, and white now pushes through, trying to break through the formation here. And the fact that we have a breaking stone here means that our dragon is slightly safer. But of course, this comes with a lot of reading. Dang Yifei has to make sure that this move actually help out the life and death of the group over here. For example, if black goes for the kill with the second line tiger's mouth, then white connects. Black plays the Hane, and white now Atari and then squeeze here. And then we can see that white can make use of the Ko in the center to fight black and try to live. So it's not easy for black to really kill the dragon here. In the actual game, black plays the Atari. Shin Jinseo knows that this is hard to kill, therefore he focuses on territory. So he Atari once, and then Atari here, cutting off the connection. White has to live separately. Well, in this case, probably white is giving up the 5 stones in the center, but they're just points. So it's not too big of a deal. So black now played. So at this point, black is leading because of the mistake of Dang Yifei just blocking instead of playing the tiger's mouth on the outside. But unfortunately for Shin Jinseo, at this point, he plays the Hane. Now, this move it looks really good on the surface, but when you think about it logically, it becomes worse. Because the reason that this is a bad move is because when you look at the formation on the left side, later on, what black wants to do is to play like this, to enclose a bunch of territory. This is definitely 13 points and more. Then you can see that this is quite thick. White's group here is quite thick. And then what you're really doing is the Hane here. And this just doesn't look right? Because white is quite solid. And you don't really want to Hane your stone on something that's this solid. That is the problem with black's logic. Is that when you play here, it's just not the right move. All right, so I hope that is clear. Now white cuts in the center. Black Atari, white captures, white gained a lot of territory, and when black extends to finally kill the center, white plays the Atari on the third line. So the trade here is not necessarily good for black. In fact, we can see that white gained so much territory over this area that is not a good trade for black. Black now squeezing away, trying to threaten life and death. This forces white to go for the shape move and live the corner, the side. At this point, black comes back to bully the life and death over here. White also answers correctly by playing 2 Tiger's Mouth and the Hane. So locally, this is a lie for white because we can simply play like this, and we can see that there's a very solid eye that black cannot break. So that's a quite easy life and death here. So when white plays the Hane, black decides to come back and connect on the second line. It's a very big move. White plays the Hane, black Hanes, and now white takes the stone on the fourth line. Black Atari, and at this point, Dang Yifei plays the AI recommendation. That is to play the attach in the center. This is a very nice Tsuji, and it's probably something that Shin Jinseo missed when he was making a judgment on the board on who's ahead. Because with this Tsuji, these 3 guys just can't escape. So in the actual game, black connected in center, white captures, and we can see white captured a lot of points. Black now plays Atari. This is a must-play move. Even if, for example, here, if, I don't know, if black plays whatever move on the outside, white extends, then Hane connect. Even like this is a lot of points. Therefore, it's a must-play move by black. That's the correct move to play. White now, since black didn't play here, then white is going to Atari and start a ko. This is also AI's top recommendation. But here, even if this is AI top recommendation, I was thinking after seeing what happened, maybe what white should have done is just to take some big endgame somewhere else and just let it go. Even just connecting here, maybe this would still be a leading game for white, just slightly leading game. But of course, in the actual game, Dang Yifei wanted something better by capturing the stone, so they have a very fierce ko fighting. Black takes, and they start with some ko threats. Both players has quite a lot of ko threats, and therefore there's going to be a few back and forth. And when black plays the Atari here, this is obviously a ko threat, and I think this is the moment. Actually, that is the best moment. I would say the clearest moment for Dang Yifei to claim victory in this game. What Dang Yifei should have played is to capture the stones over here. The reason why it wants to capture like this is because it gets rid of a lot of ko threats. Black pretty much has no ko threats left locally, and therefore white can win the ko easily. Now the cost of playing like this is that white first of all lost 1 point of profit over here. So because when you connect, then when black push, you can block here. Then we see we have an extra point. But when you capture, this happens. Now this is not your point anymore. So this is 1 point. Okay, so white lost 1 point here, but also the fact that the squeeze later on is a sente. There's no more cutting point here. Then this is also this also has value. It's not 1 point, but it's something. So it's not exactly 1 point. It's 1 point something that white lost by capturing the 3 stones over here. But if that's the cost you have to pay to win the ko, I think it's worth it. And that's exactly what AI is saying, and what the professionals are saying as well. All right, so this didn't happen in the actual game. White decides to connect. That leaves a warehouse of ko threats in the corner, and that is a very that's a very serious problem, because now it's very hard for white to win the ko. When black takes, white now finds a ko threat. White takes back. Black Atari. White connects. Black takes back, and now white pushes. That's all absolute ko threats that you have to respond to. And at this point, when black plays the throw in, we can see how many ko threats that black has. White captures. Black takes. White now cuts in the corner. We can already see that because you wanted to save 1 point something profit, now you have to play these type of moves to fight this ko. Right? You don't want to lose this ko unconditionally, therefore you have to fight. So why not just sacrifice 1 point something to guarantee you win the ko? Now you have to play all the point losing moves to try to win the ko, and the amount you lose will be way more than 1 point something. So this is a point losing ko threat, because later on, in terms of pure endgame, when white hane and block, we can see that the fact we didn't exchange this makes the formation a lot weaker for black, and therefore later on black has to spend moves to fix the problems. So this is what black lost by playing like that. All right, in the actual game, white cuts, black Atari, white takes back, and now black just using all these very fantastic ko threats, and white is feeling very uncomfortable actually, because all these ko threats are too easy for black. So after a few exchanges, white decides to cut here. This is also a obvious point losing ko threat, because it allows black to capture an extra point. White takes back, black extends, and then we have white just completing the the ko threats. Black Atari, white takes, black takes back, and now white cuts. Oh my god, this is another point losing ko threat. The reason it's a point losing ko threat is because when white plays hane connect, black needs to spend another move to fix the corner. But when you cut, then when you hane connect, it does nothing, right? Black is already just fine. White takes back, black plays the tiger's mouth. This is threatening the life and death of the group. So white hane connects, and black takes back. White Atari, black connects. White takes back, black Atari on the second line down here. White has to connect, and black takes back. White extends, black blocks, and white takes back. Black now squeeze white. It is looking at the throw in here, so white has to connect. Black takes back, white connects, and now black takes back. So I have to say that throughout this process, AI was emphasizing one thing, which I think it's important to mention, but not to take too seriously, because AI was saying that along the process, what white could have done, of course, white had to answer that, but white could have played something like crawling into the corner. The idea is not trying to live the corner, but it's create ko threat. For example, if black answers once, then that's going to be a big problem, because white hane is a sente, the hane is a sente, ko threat. So then white will win this ko, right? But AI is saying that. But for Dang Yifei, this is a tough move to play. Okay, so the reason this is so tough is, what if black connects like this, right? If black connects, can you actually live the corner? And this corner looks really small, but it's not. It really is like a very hard life and death problem. Probably at this point, Dang Yifei is in Boyomi. And for example, okay, you say, oh, maybe I can just play here. But then what happens when black clamps on the first line? You have to read this out under Boyomi. All the variations. It's not easy to do. And Dang Yifei didn't see that in the actual game. But I mean, this takes courage to do, right? So if white plays the tiger's mouth, then we can pull the stone back. And then white has this type of ways to resist. That's why AI kind of recommended, but it's very complicated to read this out. So this is not, I wouldn't say this is really an opportunity for Dang Yifei, even if AI sees this opportunity. It's very difficult for humans to see it. All right, now white connects over here. This is an absolute ko threat. Black has to capture 2 stones. White takes back. Yeah, and then black throws in, that's a co-threat, and takes. And here, finally, white decides to escalate co-threat by haunting on the first line. Black has to block, white takes back. Black now pushes through, trying to cut here. Absolutely, white has to answer that. Black takes back, and now white plays, oh my god, another point losing co-threat. You could have played the Atari here, right, as a normal endgame, but this is just not good in terms of points. Black captures, white takes, black now. So Shin Jinseo at this point made a very accurate judgment on the board, right? He realizes that yes, if I lose this ko, it's a lot of points. But look at how many gifts that white has already given me. First of all, there's some gifts over here. And also a little gift over here where you sacrifice their stone. Then a little bit gifts over here, right? We also lost a lot of points here. And finally, of course, when I take here, right, this is also a small gift. All these gifts added together, it's already compensating for what black lost over here, right? That's why usually when you play ko, you have to be very careful about your point losing ko threat. Don't use them lightly. All right, so now black takes, white now connects, and we can see that at this point, Dang Yifei, because of all the losses here and there, is actually behind in this game, and it's pretty much impossible to come back at this point against the #1 player in the world. All right, so let's look at some of their endgames. So black Atari, white connects, black now blocks. Obviously, the biggest endgame right now. White now hanes, sending to play the throw-in. This is quite a big threat, but black is relying on the fact he has more co-threat and plays the Kosumi, looking at the aji, such as like connecting here. So white now defends that. Black blocks. White has to make an eye, and black comes back to fix the throw-in here. It's a very serious problem. White now plays the, how do you call that? You play, the 2x2. This is a very big move because looking at the cut, but also if black ever gets here, this is like one extra point plus a little bit more. So that's why this is a very big end game. So since we're at the end game, I pretty much never done this. We're gonna do a little bit like fun practice as to like calculating how much each move is worth. Okay, so black blocks. This is well, you're just responding to a thing, so that doesn't count. But first, we'll look at like connecting over here. The reason why I connect over here is because this is worth 3 points, right? I wanted to leave you as an exercise, but I guess we're not going to do that. So the reason this is 3 points is because if white plays somewhere else and black captures, white plays here and black captures, we can see that this is 2 points, right? It's 1 point plus a capture. Now, so where does the third point come from, right? This is not a point yet. Black needs to play a move to get a point. So when this is when the situation is like when you have to play a move to become 1 point, we call that 0.5 points, right? Because the probability of you getting this move is 50%. So we will call expected value to be 0.5. But realize that when black plays this move, it also gets rid of white's 0.5 point here. If white has this stone connected, then when white plays the squeeze, that's a sente. So white used to have 1 point, but then after whatever you play here, after these exchanges, black becomes 2.5, but then you went from 1 to 0.5. So the total is 3 points exactly, actually. That's very interesting. It's not an exercise I do very often in my commentary, but I hope it helps out like your endgame, because I feel like a lot of times you're playing an opponent who's really similar to your level, and you want to figure out, at some point the game's determined by endgame. So if you're good at like calculating these kind of stuff, then it will definitely help you out. All right, so let's look at the actual game. White connects here. We said it's 3 points. When black didn't play inside his territory, instead black push here. So this is a very obvious 1 point sente, right? White has to respond. So when it's a 1 point sente, we usually call this a 2 point gote. And to facilitate our calculation, usually gote is the way we measure the values, right? When I say 5 point gote, you can pretty much think about it as just 5 points, right? That endgame is worth 5 points. So that's the way to calculate. All right. So next up, we have black playing the squeeze over here. So this, what we call, is a reverse sente 1 point, which is also worth, this is also worth 2 points. It's like a 2 points over there because you deny the right of white having this 1 point in sente, right? So if white squeeze here, then white will have 1 point for free in sente. So when you get rid of that, it's worth 2 points. Now, white plays here, 1 point sente. So these are all worth 2 points, actually, in theoretical value. And white Atari, that's also 1 point sente. That's 2 points. So these players playing very well the very end game. And white plays the Atari here. This is also a 1 point sente because we're trying to enclose this point in sente. Black cannot allow the capture, so black has to connect. And the Atari, that's just an exchange. There's not really points. White Atari, these are all like exchanges. And finally, white plays another move, looking at the potential weakness that black has. Black decides to not answer that because he knows there's no Aji there, and you can tell that for these players, obviously you don't want to fill into your own territory when there's nothing, right? This is just some Aji. It doesn't really work. All right, so at this point, the game ends. And Shin Jinseo won this game by 3.5 points, or in Chinese term is 1 3/4 of 3/4 stones. So you can multiply that by 2 approximately to get the point. So it's 3.5 points. But actually, I'm not exactly sure because sometimes I get different answers. It's not multiplied by 2. So if you guys know how it works exactly, you can let me know in the comment section, because I always play the games like in points. Never played a game where the rules are Chinese, so I'm not exactly certain. So if you can educate me on that, please do comment in the section. But anyway, Shin Jinseo won this game by quite a bit. Like 3.5 points for professionals like them is quite strong lead. So I hope you guys enjoy this game. I definitely learned a ton from this game, from start to finish. So much details. And yeah, I love this game. And I'll have the game 3 coming out definitely by this weekend. And yeah, I hope to see you there. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and like the video. That really helps me out. And also make sure that you don't miss a future video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much for tuning in.